Hello and welcome into this week's BGN Instant Reaction Show. I'm Jesse Taylor, finally breathing a sigh of relief after the Eagles were able to squeak that one out, even though it wasn't looking too promising going into the fourth quarter. As always, I'm here with Shane Haff as well as Victor Williams. Rachel is behind the glass doing her thing, getting ready to read all of, I'm sure, the unpleasant responses that are happening on Twitter. But we're just going to talk a little bit about everything that sort of went on today. This is going to be, I think, one of our very first true instant reaction shows where we've been able to sort of talk about everything and talk about the schemes of the defense and talk about what the offensive game plan was and sort of just, coast through a show. But I feel like everyone has, or their emotions are like up here and everyone can finally breathe. But what are your immediate thoughts coming out of that game, guys?
I'm trying to decide if I should poke the bear now or wait. But I'll just go ahead and say it now.
You should probably wait.
I was told Jonathan Gannon should be fired after last week. Are we still doing that? Are we still doing that out here?
Listen, here's my opinion. My personal opinion. I'm not one to sit here and scream about firing people. However, I understand the defense only gave up 16 points and made the crucial stop at the end. I get it. However, anyone that continuously makes me watch Josh Sweat and Robert Quinn in coverage, I want to slap in the face. Okay? So while I understand that schematically it could be sound, anything that schematically continues to put 300-pound linemen in coverage, that's not it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not it.
That part is not it, and it's unbelievably frustrating to watch week in, week out when it's things like that we shouldn't have to look at.
Yeah, well, at least we didn't have to see, Linval Joseph in suit. Not that I saw. We didn't see them in pass coverage, thankfully. So they were actually.
They don't know the whole playbook yet. They've just
wait till they find out.
There's still plenty of time for that to happen.
They didn't get to implement that. Yeah, you're definitely right. It was good to see them get after the quarterback. It was good to see the defense kind of nullify Jonathan Taylor after the first drive. I think he had, I think it was 49 yards in the first drive, and then I don't have the number in front of me of what he ended with, but I know he didn't even eclipse 100. So
84 yards.
So that's good.
That way, 49 in the first drive. I can't do that fast.
45.
I do feel obligated to point out that this season combined, Josh Sweat and Robert Quinn have combined for 8 reps where they dropped into coverage on passing down. So
how many pass deflections do they have between the two?
I don't know. They've only dropped 8
probably
times,
zero.
So it can't be many.
How many completions have they allowed? 8?
Ooh.
I have no idea on that.
No, I do remember Reddick had a breakup, so that was good to see. But yeah, so if they only allowed 35 yards for the remainder of the game, I would say that's pretty good against one of the elite backs in the NFL. Shane and I have spoken numerous times we have all these good ball carriers coming up: Jonathan Taylor, Aaron Jones, Derrick Henry, who Jordan Davis should probably be back for. Minus the first drive, I liked what I saw from the defense as far as stopping the run is concerned. There was many other issues, but starting with just the run in general, I liked the adjustments that they made. Maybe it took Sue and Joseph like a drive or two to get back to NFL speed, because Linval Joseph was looking a little winded there in the beginning. But I liked what I saw for the majority part as far as the run defense is concerned.
Yeah, and I thought they sort of pulled it together in the fourth quarter as a whole. I mean, across the board, the whole team pulled it together in the fourth quarter as a whole. But I liked a lot more I think one of my biggest frustrations with Jonathan Gannon is he almost tries to make his defense this thing, right? And it's this thing week in, week out, doing the same thing, not necessarily focused on the opponent in front of them. So, for example, I understand that Matt Ryan broke off a 40-yard run last week. Matt Ryan is a million years old, and that's not going to happen again against a team like the Las Vegas Raiders who let that happen. That shouldn't be happening against the Philadelphia Eagles. So when you are planning for the week and you look at what's in front of you, you say, okay, we are playing Matt Ryan, who has not had a lot of success against us over the last couple of years and is only getting older. Why are they doing things that aren't trying? Like, why are you waiting until the fourth quarter to really bring pressure to that man? It's things like that where I feel like they almost try to have what they're going to do, and they're trying to have an identity just across the board, which is great. But also I feel like he takes too long to be like, oh, this is who we're playing now. Let's adjust and stop it, as he did for Jonathan Taylor. And again, looking at Matt Ryan. And as we're going through, you're not playing, I understand that like the Packers are not playing well, but you can't just write off a guy like Aaron Rodgers and assume that you're going to be fine going in. You have to game plan for who is in front of you. And I feel like that is sometimes where it lacks with Jonathan Gannon.
To your specific point on the blitzing, that first drive, they had the Colts to a 3rd and 6, and they sent pressure. And Ryan hit the spot vacated by the blitzer immediately, 24-yard gain. And blitzing is not something Gannon wants to do a lot. And when on the first 3rd down of the game, he calls one and it gets diced up, he's going to go back into his shell. Like, he doesn't want to be a blitz-happy guy to start with. And then when he gets burned by it on the first drive, I think you're less likely to see it. On passing downs, he trusts his coverage. I did think, though, that after the first drive, the Colts walked right down the field. And I thought they just tried to insert Joseph and Sue and say our defense is going to work now, and it didn't. I felt like after that they did start to at least run blitz some more. Josiah Scott was flying downhill into some gaps out of the slot. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson made a few plays in the backfield. So I did like that. It was like it took him one drive to realize, hey, Joseph doesn't solve all our problems, but there's some other things we can do. And so I did like seeing that.
Yeah, what is the alternative though? Like, you have to use like, we got carved up. We have these two big guys. You got to throw them in there when Jonathan Taylor, which is exactly why like Sue's been here for 48 hours, and they just threw him into the fire. So I didn't expect a whole lot. I'm encouraged from their performance, from what they did today. The combined sack between the two was exciting to see on that front. Jess, you had mentioned that they need to get under pressure. Shane, I was going to bring up that play, essentially the 3rd and 6 where they sent the house, and it didn't work out for him. So Gannon gets in his head a lot, and he's like, well, I'm not going to continuously do this. But for you guys, defensively speaking, who do you think has missed more between Jordan Davis and Avonte Maddox? Because I felt like both of those specific positions were exploited. Obviously, defensive tackle has been in recent weeks, but by the week, you're starting to see how important Avonte Maddox has been for this defense.
Yeah, I would say Avonte Maddox, and honestly, I would have said Avonte Maddox last week as well. It's so compromising to what they want to do in the secondary. And I mean, Josiah Scott made some plays today. He also, he was also responsible for a couple big completions. So to me, it all starts with that back end. If I could only bring one guy back next week, it would be Avonte Maddox.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, I would agree, because you have to be able to trust the back end to do half of the things that they want to do. And you trust Avonte Maddox way more than any of those other guys that they're going to throw in there.
Yeah, especially you can see how the Eagles are more comfortable when they're in 3rd and long situations, because without Jordan Davis, it's really tough to get teams in 3rd and long situations. But in those occurrences that they do, you can see how comfortable they are. The last couple weeks, though, unless I'm not paying as close attention as I think I am, Darius Slay's been looking a little rocky these last few games. Yeah, what's going on there?
It was, I mean, last week it was heavily taken advantage of. This week he didn't look great, but it wasn't as exploited. But how does that happen? What happened?
That's where I'm at. What is going on?
Yeah, like what's going on right now? And I think I'm at that point with a couple spots of this defense at the moment.
Yeah,
where I'm just
Cox.
kind of
Done.
I'm just like, how did we get here? I think those are my only 2 tweets of the game today. Was where did my defense go, and then where did my offense go when they were just, I don't know what they were doing.
They were both gone. Where's special teams been at all year? Yeah.
We have a problem with that on here. We don't talk about special teams very often.
Oh, that's the rule? That's the rule now?
Well, Jess doesn't talk about it. I bring it up every week, and then she changes the subject.
It's so frustrating.
Britton Covey getting clotheslined every week. You don't like that? No.
The best play I've ever seen him make was when he called for a fair catch today. It was tremendous.
He had a 13-yard return today. Nice little 13-yarder,
I tweeted the missed field goal by the Colts, and I said that's the most positive impact an Eagles special teams play has had all season.
He let a punt go into the end zone, and I was pretty happy about it. I was like, all right, touchback.
Let's go.
At least we're at the 25. Thank God.
Yeah, but I to your point, Vic, I don't know what's going on all of a sudden. Like this team that was playing so well, so cohesively, and maybe it has to do like, but they didn't fall off like that right after Jordan Davis went down, and Avonte Maddox had been in and out anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you see where they missed them, obviously, but it's not like, this guy goes down and your defense falls apart. Like it took a couple weeks for it's to start to fall apart a little bit and things start to happen here and there. I don't know if there's like, it's one of those things where after the season, we're going to hear about this like weird injury that Darius Slay was nursing since, like week 6 that he has to have, like who knows, but they need to figure it out.
Yeah, Slay's been known to play through injuries and not really speak about it, so it wouldn't shock me if this was one of those moments. One of the guys that Shane and I weekly sing our praises for, well, more so me than Shane, I guess, is CJ. And he looked really active today, in my opinion. It's weird to speak on it immediately after the game and not go back and see it, but from my perspective, I felt like CJ was like 1 in every 4 plays he was in there making the tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He was downhill a lot in run defense.
He hits hard for a guy his size, man.
Yeah, he hits really hard. He's not a great tackler, but he hits you hard.
Hey, he'll knock you off balance if you fall.
He's gonna light you up or miss the tackle. But R.I.P. the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson interception streak. I guess it ends at 5 games.
Ends at 5.
The drive that Marcus Epps stripped the ball. I tweeted like 2 plays before that at the start of the drive. It's time for Chauncey to get his pick. And then it was not to be, but that's all right. I'll take a fumble too.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Shane's. Not all of CJ's picks are good picks. Takes. Those end this week.
Every pick is a good pick. It's just not always the result of a great play.
Oh man.
Valid. All right, let's shift gears to the offense a little bit because while again I think both sides of the ball obviously deserve credit for the win and deserve credit for their final drives that they had to execute. Obviously, the defense made sure that nothing happened with the 1-point lead. Jalen Hurts leads them right down the field and uses his legs and his strength to make sure that they obviously get the touchdown on that play. If you had to pinpoint where your main frustration was throughout this game within the offense, where would you guys put it?
Can we point out what? Can we point out like what was good on the offense? It's a little easier to do that. Well,
yeah, sure.
I mean,
but both.
No.
Point out what your favorite part was and what your biggest.
Let's complain first, and then we'll
we'll end it on more positive, please.
Yeah, there's not many.
Complain.
Well, the absence of Dallas Goedert was very evident today. Now, I thought, and Shane as well, obviously, like we all thought that if Dallas Goedert was lost for any part of the season for whatever reason, it was going to be one of the most devastating blows that the team could sustain. Obviously, we weren't hoping for that, which is why we were screaming for all these targets, Alberto, and all these targets at the deadline, and then we were met with anger at wanting another tight end. But now we're seeing why we wanted one, because Calcaterra clearly isn't the blocker that Goddard was. He's getting caught on penalties. Jack Stahl is what he is at this point. Tyree Jackson, I think I saw him in there for a handful of snaps, and it wasn't going well. He was caught on a holding too, I believe. Yeah. Dallas Goedert makes a lot of things go in this offense, and even when the ball isn't going his way, Sirianni and Steichen scheme him in certain situations to free up AJ and Devontae Smith. And now it's harder, as good as they are, it's harder for them to create separation now without Dallas Goedert attracting attention up the seam. That, in addition to the detail, which is what we saw through the penalties, I think that is a situation that the Eagles desperately have to figure out fast before they continuously shoot themselves in the foot.
Yeah, absolutely. The Goddard injury is huge. It impacts the running game. It impacts.
We're vindicated, Shane. We're vindicated today.
And I don't want to be, but he's foundational to how they run their offense. And I don't understand. Like Shane Steichen was horrendous today. The worst game I've ever seen him call. Like you come into a game with your tight end out, and your other tight ends are all bad. Like stop running 12 and 13 personnel. Stop it. And in this game, Boston Scott has, let me start with, Kenny Gainwell has 1 carry. You know what it was? It was on a 3rd and 3, and they come out in 13 personnel, and they run it into a stacked box, a 10-man box with Kenny Gainwell for no gain. Punt the ball. At the end of the game, Boston Scott has 3 carries. 3 consecutive carries into heavy boxes with a 5-6 running back in the red zone. Like, the game plan was horrific today from Shane Steichen. And even coming out of the 2-minute warning to line up and fake like you're going to QB sneak it on 4th and 2. Who has ever QB sneaked it on 4th and 2? And you burn a timeout? Like, the Eagles end up scoring, but the game is over if they don't pick up that 4th and 2 because they wasted a timeout trying to draw the Colts offside on 4th and 2. It's not going to happen. Like, it was just poor game management all the way from Steichen. And the A.J. Brown fumble hurts. There's a lot of things that hurt in this game, but the play calling was just horrendous today.
Bad. But it was also, it wasn't even just, we could stop it bad, but it wasn't even just bad. It was extremely, and we talked about this last week too. It was so different from what we have seen up to this point in the year. And while I understand that you lost Dallas Goedert, like, you knew going into the week that you didn't have Dallas Goedert. That wasn't a surprise this morning that you didn't have Dallas Goedert. And, you know, I understand that we talked about last week. One of the things that they do is that tight end screen that's almost an automatic guaranteed first down. You have to eliminate that from your game plan. When both of your other tight ends, your 3 other tight ends, are bad and useless in the passing game and the run game, you have to bring in a guy like Zach Pascal, who's less of a threat, but you have to bring him in because he's the one who's going to do some of that nitty-gritty stuff that Dallas Goedert does. And, you know, you're bringing him into a team that knows him really well, knows his strengths, knows his weaknesses, and knows that he's maybe less of a threat actually to, you know, catch the ball in any sort of, you know, dire situation where Jalen Hurts is trying to get rid of it. So those things are bad. So when you have all of that involved and you as an offensive coordinator know that that's coming up to you, the fact that no motion of any kind, no kind of interest. The most interesting thing that they did was on Jalen Hurts' touchdown, where they pulled Jason Kelce out and they had the whole right side of the line shift like they were in pass coverage. And that was under a minute left in the 4th quarter. Like, that was the most interesting thing we saw, and it took 59 minutes to get there.
I don't know. I thought the first play of the 3rd quarter, when you isolated Miles Sanders on a defensive end while you tried to throw the ball 70 yards downfield, I thought that was interesting. Not good, but certainly interesting.
Interesting.
I think the best play call throughout that whole drive was just sending Miles Sanders deep and having him draw that penalty. I don't know why he got speared or why that linebacker tackled him the way he did. But that was definitely an integral part to that drive. But yeah, not the smooth and everything clicking offense that we're used to seeing thus far in the season. I know people are continuously saying like, oh, Washington, set up the blueprint or whatever the situation is. I don't even think that's the case. I think the Eagles have just gotten more sloppy on offense, and they're getting away from the run, I think, just a tad. There's situations where I think they should be running, and they're getting pass happy because Hurts is, a newfound passer now. So, and they still want to use their weapons in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So they'll have to figure out how they're going to patch up that hole. The deadline is passed, so they can't, trade for anybody. Jared Cook and some other names are out there. I don't know if Howie Roseman entertains that, but it's definitely filling in the void for Dallas Goedert is proving more difficult than the Eagles probably originally thought.
And not utilizing the run enough. And when they do, I feel like they're being like, they're like, ooh, let's share the ball instead of just handing it to Miles Sanders, who again has been one of the best running backs. Has been one of the best running backs and most consistent running backs in the NFL. And you have one of the best offensive lines in football. Why are you trying to utilize the two running backs that are my size?
Yeah. Eagles running backs combined for -7 EPA on rushing attempts today. Like, the run game was not good.
Not good.
And I really didn't understand. So the Eagles get the ball back with 3.5 minutes left, down 6. So it's not a let's drain the clock, and if we don't get in, we can kick a field goal to tie the game and send it to overtime. You have to score a touchdown. Mm-hmm. And on that drive, Hurts had a throwaway. He had the broken play that he underthrew to Miles Sanders with the PI, and then he had one completion. Everything else was running the ball, run, which had not been working. I don't understand that approach. I don't know if it's that the Eagles don't have confidence in Hurts in that situation. I don't know if it is we're trying to run out the clock, but if it's we're trying to run out the clock, the Colts still had the ball with a minute 20 and a timeout left. Like, that's too much time. It's too precarious of a situation to try to run the clock out. I just, again, it was one of those things. I just thought Shane Steichen did not have it together today at all.
No, and the clip that they showed after they went and scored that touchdown, I would be willing to put money down that Shane Steichen was apologizing and thanking Jalen Hurts for bailing him out with the way he played on that final drive, because there's nothing else he could say to him at that point in time. I mean, I think this is probably, aside from last week, the most confused I've been after because I feel like we were watching the same Eagles team for the first 8 weeks of the season, and we saw a lot of consistency. And what we talked about a lot last year was, for the first 7 weeks until they started consistently running the ball, they didn't really have an identity. We saw a different team every week. We saw a different offense. We saw a different defense. We never saw any of them show up at the same time. We saw a team with an identity, with a blueprint of what they were going to do, and then obviously adjust things here and there as they needed to win the football game. I feel like we have that team is gone. We haven't seen that team again. And I don't know what team has all of a sudden arrived, but they need to go away, and the old one needs to come back. I mean, even down to the dumb thing, like all of the drive with 3 straight penalties. They had been, penalties here and there, but had been so clean for the majority of that, the first half of the season. All of a sudden, like, I just don't understand why all of a sudden everyone's falling apart in different ways.
Let's hope it's just flukiness that's going to go away. I mean, the penalties, I don't know, several of those penalties, you had the first 2 drives both killed by penalties on backup tight ends. I mean, granted, you already had 2 penalties before that. It was 1st and 25, but Jalen Hurts completed a pass for 18 yards. You're back to 2nd and 7. But wait, there's another penalty on a backup tight end that kills your drive. And so there's an element of that. There's an element of the Eagles were remarkably lucky with turnovers at the start of the year, and they just haven't been the last couple of weeks. They lose a fumble again today from A.J. Brown. It's just been a rough go of fumbles, unlucky turnovers, and you got to fix it. You got to preach ball security. There's no reason Brown should be trying to break a tackle with one hand on the ball downfield. But the Eagles seem to be hunting big plays, and it's come easy for them for a lot of this season. Now the big plays aren't coming. The negative side to that is coming, and they've got to find a way to mitigate that.
Yeah, 100%. All right, I'm scared to check in on Twitter and see what the responses to this tweet are. But you know what? Honestly, sometimes they're more fun when they're negative, because people tend to be funny. So Rachel, is there any sort of positivity, or is it just a lot of fire Jonathan Gannon?
That's what I assume.
I've seen a few fire Jonathan Gannon, but there are some people who are still being positive. I've seen a couple of, wins a win. I've seen a few of those type of things. Ugly wins count. So, I mean, that's true. But of course, like when the Eagles have these more interesting, like down to the wire games, like the comments go crazy. So some of the ones that I have seen, butts for game plan, you guys already kind of touched on that a lot. I saw "Do we suck?" ? And Jess, you were kind of touching on that a little bit. Like, this isn't the team we've been seeing. This isn't the 8-0 team that we're used to seeing. So that's interesting. A tad relieved, need a drink, almost complete team, so very stinky. So it's kind of like a mix, but I'm actually surprised by how many people have like positive responses. It's not just all fire Jonathan Gannon. Some people are just like, it is what it is. We still won. Clean it up and let's move on. So
yeah, that's pretty shocking. I guess, like you said, Jess, like confused is the tone right now. People don't know how to feel, because you did win, and when you get into the postseason and seeding, nobody cares. All they'll see is the win. Nobody cares how you got there or what the method was or whatever the situation is. And it was good to see like Quez get in the end zone after his blunder last week. Brandon Graham made up for his whatever you want to call that last week, whatever that was. Brandon Graham, his late play, made up for that as well. So there's a lot of things that when fans watch this, I feel like that they know it can be fixable. Again, a lot of dumb stuff like last week. They just got to stop getting too cute and get back to who they were in the first 8 weeks of the season. To your point, Jess.
Yeah, and I think continuing on that, like, after 8 weeks of seeing a lot of continuity, a lot of the same team, and a lot of a team who knows what they're doing and really focused, really locked in, to see it, last week after, only their second game in like 28 days and coming off the mini bye, and you're just like, okay, and they take their first loss. We knew the L monster was in there somewhere, right? Like we didn't know where it was going to be. We knew it was going to be something like that because their schedule coming up, not great, right? So you walk out last week and you're like, okay, you're frustrated at the refs. You're frustrated at the fumbles. You're frustrated across the board at a lot of different things, like whatever it was that Brandon Graham did, Quez Walker. Like you were just kind of like, all right, it was going to happen. They got it all out. That's not what we're going to see week in, week out. But now you get to this week and you see too many similarities to what they did last week. So you see these things kind of creeping back in when you were expecting a complete sort of turnaround from what you saw last week. And I think that's why you get confused and it allows a little bit more of this. Okay, so if last week was fluky, what was this week? Why is it 2 weeks in a row? And that's where that concern creeps in a little bit.
I think sloppy is the best way to put it, because a lot of, especially in the first half, a lot of it was just Eagles shooting themselves in the foot, like the penalties you guys already touched on it. So I think that this was just sloppy play. I did have a question. Shane, I think you kind of were tweeting on this earlier. The first play out of the second half where it was like the strip sack with Jalen Hurts, who's to blame for that? Because I saw a couple people tweeting about this.
Yeah, I'm like 98% sure that players did what they were supposed to, and that's just an awful design. So it's a 4-man rush. If you guys can watch the play back later if you're listening here, but it's a 4-man rush, and Miles Sanders immediately steps to the defensive end. So that tells me that he was schemed to be Sanders' guy. You see, Mailata didn't whiff. He goes immediately to the defensive tackle for the double team. Why? If you were going to do like a sprint rollout to the right, that makes sense. You just seal off the edge with your running back, but you can't roll out like 3 steps and then expect to sit in the pocket for 5 seconds. Miles Sanders has no chance against an edge rusher for that time. So, I mean, to me, that's a bad play call. Sanders did the best he can. He's not an offensive tackle. And it's a little bit on Hurts. You got to have a timer in your head and know that if that's as far as you're rolling out, there's a guy coming behind you. So mostly play call. A little bit Hurts needs to have a better pocket feel there. But overall, your offense has struggled to get in a rhythm in the first half. That should not be what you do coming out at halftime.
And I don't disagree with the idea to take a shot there, but that wasn't it. That wasn't the.
Yeah. It looked like Miles held him as long as he could. Like, it wasn't like a quick. Like, he gave him a solid 3-4 seconds. Hurts was able to wind up, and there's a good I'm sure 80 to 90 pound disparity between Ngakoue and was it Ngakoue? I think he was trying to block. So yeah, there's a good 80 pound disparity there. So
yeah, and I'll just say, as far as pass reps go, that's a great pass rep.
That's good.
Yeah, you don't
Miles,
expect
he
him
did what
to
he
block
could.
a defensive end that long.
He wasn't gonna pancake him. He wasn't gonna pancake him by any means, but
if only.
He just checked him and put him on his ass.
Yeah. But, I mean, that would highlight tape for everybody to see. All right, I have a very important question. Are we rooting for Minnesota or Dallas?
It's easy.
Dallas.
Yeah, you have to. In this one specific case, you have to do Dallas because Giants lost, right? But they're still behind the Eagles, and the Eagles need to be
by the Lions.
Yeah.
At home.
And they need to be atop of the NFC by themselves without a tiebreaker. So I think in this special case, you have to pull for. I mean, not be thrilled about it. Don't be doing backflips or nothing. But you have to quietly cheer for Dallas to give Minnesota their second loss, so that Philly can be sitting by themselves.
Basically, if Dallas wins, the Eagles sit atop. They basically have a 2-game lead by virtue of the tiebreaker for the 1 seed, and a 2-game lead in the division as well, with a tiebreaker over Dallas. Versus the flip side, if Minnesota wins, it doesn't really gain you anything in the division, but now you're just tied for the 1 seed, and you do have that tiebreaker, but you would like a little more breathing room. So as much as you don't want to, the preferable outcome would be Dallas winning.
Yeah, preferable.
3-0 in overtime.
Or they can tie. If they tie, that'd be great.
Tie works too.
They could tie. That's the preferred option.
You root for whoever's behind and hope for a tie.
Yeah. I also I can't quite explain how angry it still makes me. Not angry. I just think it's stupid. That skull chant, and when they show like the whole crowd doing it. Yeah,
It's worse than the chop drawing, but the Atlanta Braves. Yeah, it's up there with the worst chants ever in sports. So
I mean, there's so many reasons why that's the worst one.
yeah, well, I mean, for sport reasons, yeah, not the other, obvious reasons.
So many reasons. So many reasons. Well, right now the Cowboys are winning 3-0. So and
Sounds good. Sounds good to me.
Kirk Cousins thing. So you know. All right. How are we? One word to wrap this all up. Give me one word of how you're feeling right now. 35-ish minutes post game and going into all of our shows this week and getting ready for Sunday Night Football.
Relieved.
Yeah, relieved is where I'm at. Yeah. Relieved is where I'm at.
That's where we're at. Yeah. A win is a win. We'll take it.
Relieved.
All right.
Skeptical is an honorable mention. Skeptical. We can have an honorable mention. Skeptical. Yeah.
I walk away from today, and first of all, you win. So that's priority one. You win.
Yes.
Priority two is the run defense appears to be fixed, and that's huge. The third issue is the sloppiness on offense, and they haven't been sloppy on offense for 8 out of 10 games this year, and that's been 2 games in a row. But I have more confidence that they can fix the sloppiness on offense than I had that they could fix the run defense issues by signing 2 35-year-old guys out of free agency. So overall, because they win, I walk away feeling better today just by virtue of the defense taking a step forward. Now the offense just has to figure their stuff out.
Yeah, I can't wait to wake up tomorrow and see those snap counts and see that Linval Joseph was in there for like 52 snaps. Yeah, great. They're going to be winded by the postseason if they keep playing them like this. But when Jordan Davis comes back into the mix and they get the rotation going, that'll be good.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's a perfect decision on the cheap side to just fill in for now, and then when Jordan Davis gets back, use them as rotational guys.
Hey, that's an easy $750K right there to come in and play for a few games, chill out. Did Robert Quinn do anything today of note, Shane? Did you see?
Not that I saw.
Did you hear his name? No.
I think he had 1 tackle. I'll pull it back up, but yeah, didn't notice him much.
That's his best Ryan Kerrigan impression he did today. Cool.
Oh no, actually, I don't think he had a tackle. He's not showing up on the stat sheet here.
So it was Ryan Kerrigan. That's all. All right.
Sean Bradley had a tackle.
Nice.
Great.
I thought I saw him tweet during the game. I was like, "Are you playing?" I thought I saw him tweet. I guess it was something else I saw.
Oh, Fletcher Cox had a tackle today. That's so kind of him to jump in there.
Say,
How many pressures though?
Robert Quinn had the same number of tackles for loss as Fletcher Cox. So
great.
So
Yeah, so 0.
Oh, we'll hear if Fletcher's as tired as he was last week because he was vocal about how tired he was last week.
I will say there was one clip that I tweeted where Cox had a really good play in the run game. He like spun out of a double team and he hit the ball carrier. I think it was Jonathan Taylor. I don't remember which one. He hit him in the backfield. He didn't get him down, but it ends up being a tackle for loss for somebody else. So I didn't notice Cox really beyond that, but that one was a good play from him that doesn't show up on his stat sheet.
Maybe having some extra bodies in the interior defensive line will allow him to not be as tired and actually get back to himself.
Because they lost Tui Pelotu as well, so they had to make up for him. He was a key piece in that rotation.
Yeah.
Was he? He took a lot of snaps.
Key as in he got a lot of the snaps, not key as in effective. Key as in he got a large share of the snaps and gave people a rest.
I was gonna say, Sports Info Solutions does like individual defensive player EPA breakdowns, and I think it was Marlon Tuipulotu was like -1 EPA per snap that he's on the field or something.
So it was hurting the team to play him? That's what it was? Wow.
Yeah.
Good.
Wow. Jalen Reagor stat right there. That's what that is.
Speaking of,
No.
you guys listen.
No.
Did you guys happen to have any availability over the last couple weeks to listen to the full episode of the New Heights podcast with Jalen Hurts?
Mm-hmm.
I just saw the clip.
Oh,
Yeah.
I watched it all last night, actually.
I thought you were about to ask something about Jalen Reagor.
Speaking of, I thought we were
have
getting some Reagor
availability for
intrigue.
We are about to talk about Jalen Reagor for a hot second.
No.
We are. Because did you hear it? Did you hear the so there were 2 things that Jalen Hurts said that I was like that if you weren't listening, you weren't going to pick up on. One of them was a teeny. I mean, as much of a shot at a player as, a guy like Jalen Hurts is going to take, right? So they're talking about what is working on the offense this year. And he's like, yeah, like last year we were doing just like a lot of dumb things, like a lot of dumb penalties, stepping out of bounds, running a route. Like he just, and I was like, I looked at my husband and I was like, did you hear that? And he was like, what? And I was like,
Dang.
that was Jalen Reagor. And then
He
he
probably
goes,
said
I
it-
haven't thought about Jalen Reagor for a while. And I said, well, yeah. None of us really have.
He probably said it in such a professional tone that I didn't even like it. I had it on like in the background kind of, so I was like doing other stuff. But yeah, wow.
We were in the car for 5 hours yesterday. Well, 10.
Oh,
but,
yeah, no choice.
So we were just listening. And I wasn't driving, so I was just listening, and I was like, interesting.
Now I gotta go watch it.
Yeah,
It's a
if
good watch.
anybody out
It's a
there-
good visual watch, actually. It's a very good watch.
Yeah, if anybody out there watching or listening hasn't listened to that, you should go watch it, whatever you want to do. It's great stuff. And
It is.
to be honest, if you're looking for a podcast to add into the mix, both the Kelseys are really entertaining, so I can't recommend that enough. Obviously, after you listen to all the BGN stuff,
Yes.
go check out New Heights. It's been really good.
Yeah. They do a really, really good job. And especially because they talk about everything that's going on in the NFL. So anybody who's a football fan in general, whether you're an Eagles fan, a Chiefs fan, or just a football fan, so much fun to listen to.
Yeah,
And
when they talked about Hurts getting drafted, and they were like, "What was your reaction?" And you could tell Hurts didn't want to like speak on Wentz a whole lot, but he was like, "Yeah, I was just like, all right, let's go." But you could tell, like, you saw in his face when he was like, "I'm about to take this dude's job." But that's there's a lot of stuff I'm sure he wanted to say on that. Similarly to Darren Sproles on that whole thing like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And there was something else at the end of that podcast too, where he was talking about his dad being his coach, and when his dad was coaching, but also kind of growing up in that environment. So he was always able to kind of hang out with these high school quarterbacks and the guys that were working with his dad and get different pointers from a really young age and lean on some of these guys. And he said something along the lines of like, it was really nice to have that at a young age, and you have that in college. And he goes, I didn't have that so much when I came into the league. And I was like, oh my Jesus. And again, like Jalen Hurts, very like even keeled, calm, cool, collected, no inflection in his voice. And I was just like, oh, there it is.
Yeah, I like the part where he said his dad's still mad at him a little bit that he never won him a championship too. But
at the high school,
funny.
Right? At the high school? Yeah, that was funny. I remember that.
One of my favorite things, it's been a multi-episode arc on there, is Jason Kelce got Jalen Hurts on there. And so he's been trying to get Travis Kelce to get either Patrick Mahomes or Andy Reid on, and Travis Kelce's too chicken to ask him. And that's been like my favorite thing. And now he's been like blasting him on Twitter about it too. So it's pretty funny stuff.
Fun stuff.
Yeah, it's a good podcast. So definitely, again, after you listen to this one, one team did just rip out, who was it? Just ripped out their turf. I don't know if it was because of this, but people have been saying that for years. People have been
about this for a while.
It was MetLife, because I think Saquon tore his ACL, and then someone like the following week tore their ACL as well. And it's very similar to, I don't know if you remember, in St. Louis, before obviously the Rams moved to LA, they had concrete lining their field. So it was like, think about like a high school field, right? Like where it's like the field and then you have the track around and then the bleachers. So that was what they had in St. Louis. And I want to say it was Adrian Peterson slipped and tore his ACL. And I think I don't think he sued the Rams. I think he might have sued the owners of the stadium, like something where they were like, this is simply not safe. But I know MetLife was getting a lot of it from a bunch of different players getting hurt there. And I don't remember what team just ripped theirs out.
Sterling Shepard just tore his ACL this year, I think. I don't know if it was at MetLife, but he tore it this year, and there was a whole another turf situation. I don't know if it was at MetLife or not. But yeah, everybody's getting hurt on those things, and the players preferably like to play on grass. I think I remember Hurts speaking on that during the show as well. Like, grass is preferred so that we can keep our limbs intact, but that's neither here nor there.
And the way that they plant as well is just much safer. And
right.
I mean, it's concrete under turf.
Yep.
And
when you fall, it's not
anybody's joints.
It's not good.
Not good. All right. We will wrap it there now that we're just talking about podcasts. Thank you guys so much for jumping on with us. And this was actually one of, I think, my favorite shows we've done so far after the season, because we actually had a lot of things to complain about. It's much, I don't want to have more of these, but it's much easier to just let all the emotions out when, they're negative. But thank you guys for jumping on with us. We'll be back next week, post Sunday Night Football, hopefully for a win. Everyone who celebrates, enjoy your Thanksgiving this week. Eat lots of food. Watch lots of football on Thursday. Go Birds. Enjoy the win, and we'll talk to you next week.
Catch y'all.
Go Birds.